We all know how incredible the MVP glitch is. It's taken disc golf by storm, and it's becoming one of the best-selling discs on the market. But is it really the straightest throwing putter around? We'll find out, because we're putting it to the test against 28 other putters of varying flight numbers to find out which ones are the straightest. This is Flight Numbers Don't Matter. Hey everyone, it's Greg from Six Sided Discs, and happy holidays. In our Flight Numbers Don't Matter series, we've tested and compared some of the most popular flight numbers in the game, as you can see here. But we've only really done one test with putters to see which putters fly the furthest. Now, there were some interesting findings in our furthest flying putter video, but one of the most interesting takeaways we had was how differently some putters went about getting that distance. Some were overstable and had to be forced over on Anheuser. Others were understable and would flip up and turn before getting a little bit of fade, achieving that coveted S-shaped flight path that gives discs maximum distance. However, what if you're not going for distance? Putters aren't really used for distance. They're used for control. As we discussed in our straightest mid-range and straightest fairway tests, a straight shot is the hardest shot in disc golf. And the faster a disc is, the harder that shot becomes. Which in theory should mean that the easiest disc to use for a straight shot is a putter. And since there are tons of holes in disc golf that look like this, and this, or this, you need to have this shot in your bag if you're going to compete at almost any level. Now, we all already know just how amazing the glitch is, and it's probably most people's go-to disc for this shot. In fact, it's my go-to disc for this shot because this is my glitch. So why don't we go ahead and see what the rest of the field is up against. The glitch has a smooth flip to flat, and then it holds the slightest of turns its entire flight. So that's our baseline. Let's see if any of our discs can come close. And we'll begin with the Snoopy from Alpha Discs. The Snoopy is available in a variety of plastics from Alpha Discs, including their base copper blend, but we'll be testing their Crystal Glow. The Snoopy has some tiny bit of flip up, followed by a smooth, minimal fade. Overall, not bad. Looks good, but it wasn't really straight. So let's move on to our next disc, the ThoughtSpace Praxis. The Praxis is a 3301 throwing putter because they haven't yet made it in a base plastic. Our Praxis is in Aura plastic, similar to MVP's Neutron, and feels great. So how straight is it? Well, it flew pretty straight, but there's just a little too much turn there on the Praxis for it to be the straightest putter that we tested. In fact, it's not even going to make it into our top 5. Moving on now to the Mint Discs Bullet. Well, the Bullet looks and feels almost exactly like the Praxis. So will they fly the same? Strangely, not at all. And wow, for a second there, I thought the Mint Discs Bullet was going to be super straight, but eventually that low speed fade kicked in, and it kicked in big time. Meaning, not only is the Bullet nothing like the Praxis, it's nothing like straight either. Let's move on then to what should be one of our early contenders, the Trash Panda Inner Core. With flight numbers of 2, 4, -0.50, it was impressively straight when we tested it in our first impression series a couple months ago. But just how straight is it today against the glitch? First, let's take a look at Premium. And the Premium Inner Core flips up and turns and never comes back. In fact, it was way more understable than we expected. So let's see if the base Inner Core can do any better. And that is more like it. That is outrageously straight. The Inner Core in base plastic has to go down as one of the top 5 straightest discs that we tested. Let's see if the Lone Star Benny can join it. We explored the Lone Star Benny a few months ago and found it pretty similar to a Luna, but today our Benny was a touch more overstable than before. Definitely more so than the average Luna, in fact. That's for sure. So, definitely not straight enough for us. Let's move on to another putter from Lone Star, the Penny And no, I didn't misspeak. It is in fact the penny, not the Benny, in Victor 1 plastic. And let's get through this one nice and quick because holy crap, the penny putter was insanely understable. Anyways, moving on. Let's take a look at the first of a half dozen or so discs from MVP, beginning with the Proton Atom. The Atom is one of MVP's most popular putters, released way back in 2014, and it still holds up well today. Let's see how it flies. And honestly, the Atom was straighter than I expected, but it definitely had enough fade that it wouldn't be my first choice for a straight throwing putter, especially if you aren't a power thrower. Next up from MVP is the Nomad. The Nomad is a beaded putter from MVP and is part of James Conrad's growing line of discs. I'm not sure I've ever personally thrown a Nomad, but here we have the 2023 Halloween R2 Eclipse version with the glow rim and recycled plastic with a nice fancy stamp. And well, here's how it flies. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting that. Holy moly. The Nomad was way more overstable than I expected. And I fear the next disc might be as well. Let's take a look at the Streamline Stabilizer. And I know what you're thinking, Greg, that's an overstable approach disc. Everyone knows that. And you're right, but I thought maybe in electron plastic it might be straight Never mind, it's crazy beefy. Let's quickly move on to the Proxy, which definitely has way more potential to fly straight than the Stabilizer. The only Proxy we had available to test was this Total Eclipse Proxy from late last year. But even for an understable disc, this Proxy had just a little too much low-speed fade for this test. Alright, so things aren't going so great in the MVP category, but there's still time for the NV. Everyone knows the premium plastic NVs are nice and stable, very torque resistant, but what about an electron firm version? Crap. Okay. Obviously, I wasn't expecting the electron firm NV to be that overstable. I've seen them before. Conrad throws them like, woo, this nice big turn. Maybe it could be straight. I was wrong. But don't worry, I've got a disc that will redeem MVP. Everyone say hello to the Watt. So the Watt is very interesting. Rated at 2, 5, negative 0.5, 0.5. Some people have called it a max weight glitch. And I could see why. The Watt actually flips up to flat, and then it just holds that line for so much of its flight. Not only was it one of the straightest shots we saw, but it was also one of the furthest flying discs, easily cruising past 330 feet. All right, so the Watt came in clutch for us for MVP. Couple of really nice straight discs so far. Let's keep it going with the Doomsday Gloom. The Gloom, I thought, was a beginner-friendly base plastic putter. Rated at 2.3, negative 1.1, it sounds like exactly what we're looking for. Slow, controllable, neutral. However, much like some of the other base plastic we've already seen, it was quite overstable. Now, this isn't totally uncommon for base plastics. They usually start out more overstable, but of course they beat in much more quickly. So there's every chance that the Gloom flies super straight after a few rounds and a few trees, but right off the shelf, expect a decent amount of stability. Moving right along now to the Discmania Logic, which we're testing in 2 different plastics today, Exo Soft and Lux Vapor. We checked out the Cosmic Fury a while back, and we were impressed with its stability. So perhaps unsurprisingly, it was not the straightest flight we saw today. However, the real reason we included a Logic in this test is for this. Yes, indeed, the Exosoft Logic was one of the straightest discs around, definitely worth a place in our top 5, and definitely worth its place in my bag. Next, let's have a look at the Reco from Kastaplast. The Reco is rated at 3301, the same flight numbers as the Logic, and overall, it has a pretty similar shape and feel. The most noticeable difference being a small bead. Off the tee, it seemed like the Reco wanted to flip to flat, but it just resisted and had a minimal fade toward the end of its flight. While it was pretty straight overall, it's not quite straight enough to make our top 5. Next up, we have a pair of discs from Innova. Starting with the classic AVR 2301, you already know it's one of the most popular putters ever. But why don't more people throw it? That I do not know, but the question we're trying to answer is it straight? Normally, we would expect Innova discs in G-Star plastic to be more understable, as has often been the case when we've tested other Innova discs, but with the AVR, that is not the story. So what about a disc from Innova that says it's straight, like the Star Colt? Okay, to be honest, I already know that the Star Colt is not the straightest throwing putter because we threw it in our furthest flying putter video earlier in this series, but I wanted to see it again, so here it is.
Oh, yeah. See ya. That's an honor.
Yeah, that's something, huh? Anyways, next up, the Dynamic Discs Judge. The Judge is Dynamic's flagship putter, rated at 2401, and we have the Judge today in Lucid Ice Plastic, a stiff premium blend. Let's see how it flies. And the Judge was just plain overstable. Next, a disc that looks and feels quite a bit like the Judge. It's the Viking Rune. We did one of our very first disc in the details videos on the Rune. Don't go watch it though, because boy, our videos were they're better now. Anyways, how does the Rune fly for us today? Well, to be honest, I expected more from the Rune. I've seen it fly straight in the past, although I think that was the base plastic version. But if you hold it side by side and you see how much it looks like the Judge, I guess it's not that surprising that it kind of flew a lot like the Judge too. Now we go from a disc that we knew pretty well to a disc that we don't know at all. It's the Finish Line Pace. Our very own Team 6-sided discs Wyatt Wagner is sponsored by Finish Line, so we thought, why not try the Pace? Even though it's rated a little bit more overstable at 2401.5, we obviously don't take flight numbers at their word. So, how does it fly? Well, the Pace was strangely inconsistent. If you don't power up on it, it fades aggressively. But if you really rip on it, it isn't torque resistant at all, and it turns right over. And neither of those are straight, though straight is somewhere in between, which begs the question, someone could probably get it to fly straight, right? Next up, we have a pair of putters from EV7. The Phi, rated at 3401, and the Telos, rated at 2401.5. And on paper, the Mobius was probably the better putter to try and get a straight flight from if we were picking from EV7's lineup. Unfortunately, we just didn't have any available at the time we made this video, so maybe we'll be able to test one in the future. But if we watch the Phi and Telos side by side, neither was quite what we were looking for. The Phi was surprisingly overstable, while the Telos flipped over super fast, and while it looked straight for a moment, it was going to keep on turning before the ground got in the way. So let's move on now to the Divergent discs, Nuno. Divergent discs makes typically inexpensive and beginner-friendly discs, which is all the more reason I was surprised to find the Nuno, rated at 34-11, to be this overstable. Let's see if one of their other putters can do the trick. The Divergent discs, Narwhal, rated at 33-2 0.5. It looks and feels quite a bit like an Innova dart. It has a narrow rim, and it's really comfortable in the hand, but pretty deep and domey. Does that make it a recipe for a straight flight? We'll find out, because we're going to take a look at both the Max Grip Glow and the Max Value plastic. First, let's see Max Value, and for once, the flight numbers are as advertised. It is indeed incredibly understable. So, will the Glow plastic add that little bit of stability that we need? No. No, it's not straight, but holy crap, it flies so far. While we weren't throwing for distance, this narwhal blew the rest of the competition away, coming to rest at about 420 feet. It flew more like a mid-range than a putter. And for a whopping $13 retail price in their Glow plastic, I'd say it's worth a try. Find yours at sixsidedisc.com. And just like that, we're at our last putter, the Discmania Sensei. Now I know what you're thinking. I know how YouTube videos work, Greg. You save the big moment for the end. But I also know most of you are thinking, really? The Discmania Sensei? Well, just watch. And this comes as a huge surprise to me too, but the Sensei was incredibly straight. Let's actually watch that without the tracing and zoom in. And strangely, if you look, the Sensei is holding a slight hyzer angle almost the whole time, but still just holds and holds and holds straight. I have to say, I would not have put my money on the Sensei being one of our top 5 straightest flying putters. But here we are. So rounding out our top 5, alongside the Sensei, is the Discmania Exosoft Logic, the MVP Neutron Watt, the Trash Panda Base Plastic Inner Core, and of course, the Neutron Soft Glitch. Comment below what you bag is your straight throwing putter, and what flight numbers we should test next. For Six Sided Discs, I'm Greg. We'll see you in the next one. We'll find out, because we're putting it to the test against 28 other Okay, try it again. Here we go. We're off to a rough start.
I think he flipped a little bit though.
Yeah, it looked like it had a chance.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, never mind.
That's so flippy.
Is it?
When you threw the last one, it was.
Oh, yeah. See ya.
Told you.
That's an honor.
If you like this content and want to see more, blah, 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 blah. If you like this content and want to see more, please consider liking the video, subscribing to our channel, or supporting us on Patreon. Your support makes this content possible.